I'm Crystal Faulkner with the CPA and Business Advisory firm of Cooney, Faulkner and Stevens. We're here today with Steve Wilson, Chairman and CEO of LCNB National Bank. And Steve, you're also the immediate past chair of the American Bankers Association. So being the CEO of a community bank and having such a presence nationally, I'm very interested in your perspective on the banking industry and whether or not the bailout was something that you would find advisable.
Well, that's interesting, Crystal, because first of all, the banking industry is strong, and the bailout and several other things are myths that are kind of haunting us as we go forward here. I guess the first myth is the misunderstanding of a bank. You know, I represent 7,500 banks, community banks of all sizes across this nation that have 2.2 million employees that go to work every day to help their communities and to do their jobs. And people don't understand the difference between an investment bank or a mortgage bank or a traditional community bank.
A bank, in other words, is all banks are not created equal.
No, not at all. And the other myth is that there was a bailout. Now, truly there was a bailout of the automobile industry. Truly there was a bailout of the insurance industry. But the part of TARP money that went to traditional community banks was the Capital Purchase Program. And it was the greatest deal of all times for the taxpayers. The taxpayers did not bail out community banks. They received 6.5% return on the money that was given to banks, and banks created lots of additional economic stimulus because of that. And they didn't lose a dime on what they put into community banks.
6.5% in the last few years is not a bad return on your investment, for sure. Let's talk about the current image of the banking industry and what impact that has on the overall economy.
Well, our image has really suffered. It's suffered because the administration has chosen to use banks as the scapegoat for where the economy is. It has suffered because of the fact that we are based in the national media. But the reality is that we have to improve that image. Until we're winning in the public opinion arena, we'll never win in the political arena.
Well, quickly, do you have any idea of how we can improve that image?
Well, we need to do it from the grassroots. You know, it's interesting. People, if you ask people, what do you think of banks? They say, oh, banks, you know, they ruined our economy, etc. What do you think of your bank? Oh, you know, Sally runs the United Way, and Jim, he's on the school board, and you know, I got my first loan there, and they're great. So we have to win bank by bank, community by community, and we're doing that.
Well, Steve, we're out of time. Thanks for that great information. But we're going to continue our conversation with Steve Wilson, CEO of LCNB, on WCPO.com. So Steve, as a CPA, I hear many times from different types of businesses their issues in trying to get a bank to loan them money. In your position as CEO of LCNB, are you loaning money? Is there money to loan out there?
My, yes. Banks have never wanted to loan more than they do today.
Then what is that? Why do you hear this conversation about no money to loan?
Two reasons. The first reason is the fact that, for instance, we haven't changed our lending pattern because we were always a conservative lender. But when a lot of the loans were being made outside of the regulated banking industry, the terms were such they would loan 100, 110%. You didn't have to personally sign, etc. We never went there, and so we haven't changed how we lend. That isn't good, proper, conservative underwriting of loans. That's gone away. That unregulated sector's not there anymore.
You know, what I'm saying is that banks are willing to lend on good, solid business plans, good strategies.
Always were, are today, want to lend today more than ever. The reason they want to lend today more than ever is one result of this great recession is that people are saving again. So banks have a tremendous amount of liquidity. You know, in our small bank alone, we're used to having a 75 to 80% loan to deposit ratio. In other words, that's how much of the deposits we have loaned out. Today we're below 65%. We want to make loans. The second factor is the lack of demand. We probably have never had a larger pipeline of loans, people who want to borrow. And we underwrite their loan, we say, great, you're going to create jobs, you're going to do this. Well, we're with you, we're going to go, let's go. And they say, okay, but just hold on. Well, what do you mean, hold on? Well, I got to wait and see what's going to happen with the tax code, and what's going to happen with regulation,
Healthcare,
and what's going to happen with healthcare, and what's going to happen with the economy, and what's going to happen with the deficit. There are so many uncertainties. You know, decisions just need to be made. If the decision is that we only can make the Social Security system sound by changing retirement age to 70, get it done.
That's right. I think you're exactly right. I think regardless of what decision is made, just having a decision that people could then plan around is what really is going to matter here. Let's talk about regulation. There's been a big wave of regulation that affects banks, but how does that also affect consumers?
Well, it affects consumers because, well, first of all, I don't think people understand the ramifications of the Dodd-Frank Act. You know, I was speaking to a group of bankers in Montana, and the speaker before me was the president of Minneapolis Fed. And he said, you bankers need to get over this. You know, you've always had regulation, you know, and so you just do it. And I was the next speaker, and I said, sir, with all due respect, and I happened to have a picture. And that picture was a display case in the Colorado Bankers Association lobby that showed all the different banking legislation. Federal Reserve Act, the Federal Deposit Insurance Act, Glass-Steagall, Gramm-Leach-Bliley, Fiducia, all along, okay? And they ranged from 52 pages to 78 pages. And at the end of that display case, with all these displayed, was the Dodd-Frank Act, 5,383 pages, and a mark on the wall that is at 6 foot 2 inches as how high the paper would be piled when everything was like. Absolutely.
And obviously,
so it's the regulatory burden.
Well, and it's going to cost consumers more because banks have to have more costs associated with implementing that.
Absolutely. And then there are parts of that act that are price fixing and things of that nature, like the Durbin Amendment, et cetera, that are costing consumers.
Real quick, what do you perceive the future of the banking industry to be?
Bright, good. The future of our country is bright and good. We have to get certainty into our system, but we are still the strongest economic power in the world when we come out of this global recession, and it has been global. We will be the lead economy, as we always have been, and things will be just fine.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for being my guest and for your great perspective.